10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
There's no need to fear.
I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, 'cause I'm black.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Super Black, an all-black panel podcasting experience where we talk about all things superhero, past, present, and future. From Marvel and DC to anime, there is no stone we will leave unturned as we take a deep dive into the genre of superpowered individuals and the worlds they inhabit. I am your friendly neighborhood host, Zuri Washington. I use she, her pronouns, and you can follow me on IG at Zuri with a fringe on top. That's Zuri with a Z, not Suri with an S. I'll leave it to the rest of today's super panel to introduce themselves. Take it away.
Hi, so good to be back. My name is Michael Andreas. Pronouns are he, him, and you can find me on Instagram at Michael_Andreas.
Hey, Corinne Scott here. She, her pronouns. You can find me on the Instagrams at I am Corinne Scott. 1 R, 2 N's and an E. It's usually just photos of my dog. But also I do have opinions on things sometimes.
Oh, hello there. My pronouns are he, him. And you can find me across all social media platforms at Omar Holmon. Real name, no gimmicks.
And don't forget to follow the podcast itself on IG.
I gotta step my intro game up.
I know, right? Damn.
Too much.
This will be funny.
I am intrigued.
Intrigued. But don't forget to follow the podcast itself on IG at Super Black Podcast, or you can follow us on Twitter at Super Podcast. But now that we are all assembled, let's get started. So today we are doing a character deep dive. I like to call them Dossier Deep Dives. We're going to talk Daredevil, Matt Murdock. First introduced in 1964 in his same named comic. This is the first one that we're talking about. I think has been introduced in his own comic as opposed to in like someone else's. Because at some point we'll talk about Spider-Man, but he wasn't introduced in his own comic. He was in a Fantastic Four comic, as well as Black Panther 2. So that's exciting. Let's talk. I love Daredevil. Like as a character generally, Matt Murdock is really someone that is easy to align with. We've talked about what did I call them? Common man superheroes, and Matt Murdock is definitely one of those. And it's easier for those of us who do not have superpowers, which is most of the world. Maybe there's some secret underground organizations of people who do actually have superpowers, but it's easier to find yourself aligned with a Matt Murdock or a Clint, and rather than a superpowered Spider-Man. So I like Matt Murdock, and I've loved the portrayal of Daredevil that was obviously in the I bow down to the Daredevil of the Netflix and now Disney Plus, newly on
Charlie
Disney
Cox.
Plus.
Yep.
Charlie Cox, so who made his appearance for the first time in the official MCU in No Way Home, as we all know. So, what are your
He's a really
thoughts
good
on?
lawyer.
He is a great lawyer, great lawyer with excellent reflexes. But what are your general thoughts on our friend Matt Murdock, friendly lawyer extraordinaire?
I'll go last because
I know you.
Listen, I got something to say about Matthew Murdock, aka.
I'll go first. I'm a really big fan of Matt Murdock. I'm always a big fan of superheroes that do more with less. Like I love a superhero that's not OP, that's not overpowered, but still manages to, which is why Superman's probably my least favorite. But I like a superhero like a Batman, like a Punisher, even somebody that has less, but they still manage to hang with the big boys. So I was always intrigued with the idea of Matt Murdock, and even enjoyed the Ben Affleck version. You know, I wasn't, maybe it wasn't my favorite superhero movie ever, but it was enjoyable. I was entertained when it first came out. But then when I saw this new version, I mean, as soon as I saw the black mask over his face and in the black gear, before I even saw a frame of the show, I was in. I was like, this is gonna be a version that I can sink my teeth in. I'm gonna really, really dig this. And they did not disappoint. I think back to that first fight in that hallway, man. That was it. I was all in from that point. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Those are my initial first thoughts on Daredevil.
You know, it's so interesting when you mentioned the Ben Affleck movie, because when that first came out, I was obsessed with it. What year did that come out? Like 2004?
2003.
Yeah. So I was 12. And I was obsessed with it because I was like, superheroes can have there can be movies like this, because at that time I don't really think we'd only had the Spider-Man series, and what was that, 2002?
And yeah, it was the first one had come out.
Yeah, the first one had come out. The second one I think was 2002, right? Whichever. Yeah.
Later than Spider-Man, yeah.
Amazing. But it was just the first time that I was like, oh my God, because I saw Spider-Man movies and I liked them, but seeing how comic booky the Daredevil series was, I loved, because it didn't feel inauthentic to me at the time. Of course, I have not rewatched that movie in many years.
No, I haven't either.
However, I watched it. I made sure we went to BJ's Wholesale Club and bought it on DVD. And I'm from Western New York, and I would sit there and just watch it every weekend because I love that shit so much. Now, when the series came out, I love Charlie Cox so much.
Yep.
He just makes so much sense. And I did not know he was British until I looked it up after the first season. My mind was blown. And then on top of that, Comic-Con, the year that it came out, Hudson Yards had not been built yet. So over by 34th and 11th?
Yeah.
Netflix had people post these really shitty posters that said attorneys at law, Murdock, and it was brilliant because it looked legitimate. I wanted to call the phone number because it was just these shitty off-white posters with black ink in just normal font, and I didn't realize that they were for Daredevil until the second time I walked by them. I was like, that shit is brilliant. That is my kind of marketing.
I do love a good advertising campaign. Right. It's so good. Like True Blood, I was like, I'll drink that. I don't know what that's for. This is great. But I love a good ad campaign like that.
Right. Series-wise, I really love the first season. As I've mentioned before, I had a problem with Elektra, but that was more casting choices that were made. And some storyline choices. And I feel like the third season bringing back, we're not doing, it's been out for years, so spoilers, sorry y'all.
Spoiler alert.
If it's past 6 months old, it's not a spoiler.
That's a fact.
That third season I kind of had problems with also, but that's just me.
We'll get into it.
We will.
So Omar, you're our resident Daredevil aficionado, so please tell me your sermon on Matt Murdock.
I'm ready.
Matthew, nothing but hands Murdock. Round our parts, we call him Matthew Murdock. This motherfucker hit the scene. My man is blind. The thing was dope about him, it's his radar sense given to him by, in a sense, chemical waste across his eyes, gave him took away one sense, gave him other senses, but then you come to find out that's not just sense that humans had all along, because there was a point in his life where he lost even that radar sense, and he was still out there fighting crime, completely blind, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, blind, because the man is that nasty. Stanley and Kirby the created him? When he was created back in
I think so.
Stanley and Kirby, right? 63 says 64. He had the yellow and 64. He had the yellow and red, yellow and red costume. My man didn't get put on till Frank Miller in the 80s brought him back with the damn vengeance. Daredevil, the man without fear. That series was supposed to be turned into a movie, and that's where he donned that the fuck. Are you allowed to curse here or?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's when he donned. That's when Matt Murdock donned his mama's fucking mama's pantyhose across the face, just getting it dirty as fuck. Man was out there in nothing but black Adidas, out there in an Under Armour top, just in the 80s in Adidas, getting it. And I was like, this is a whole retelling of his origin. This is that dude. And I too thought the 2003 Daredevil movie was okay. I thought it was okay. I thought it was fun. I was ridiculed. I was a senior in high school when I saw that. I got ridiculed for 13 years. I know written by Bendis and Alex Maleev. They put him on the spot. They wrote that shit for nearly 6 years, maybe from 2003 to maybe 2000. I can't remember. It was so long that they wrote that series, and it was brilliant. It took them back to the street gritty. My man was out there fighting the Yakuza, not in his armor. He was out there just blind as fuck, fighting the Yakuza in the rain. When he took over as the Kingpin, yes, Daredevil beat the Kingpin down so badly, and then told the residents, if y'all need someone to rule over you that badly, fine, I'll be your Kingpin then. And if you step to me, this is what happens. And he pointed to a bloody and beaten fist. He said, look at him. Look at him. If you cannot follow the rule, get out of town tonight. Ben Urich then said, everybody knew this happened, but nobody said shit. A lot of criminals got out of town, and everybody shut up and lay down. When he fought the Yakuza, the FBI saw it happen. And it was over within 5 minutes before they even got on the scene. And nobody said a damn thing. Everybody knew Matt Murdock, his ID got exposed. Everybody knew this man's Daredevil, but ain't nobody say shit because he's that nice. Matt Murdock is an MMA monster. Anybody in the comics? And I'll say it in the MCU, it's close, but nobody is touching this man in hand to hand. I'll even throw Shang-Chi in there. I'm sorry. Nobody is touching Matt Murdock in hand-to-hand combat. Even though in the comics, it just looks so good. And maybe that's not fair to say because he did debut in his own series and has been had it so long. But his fights with Bullseye, where my man had Bullseye done killed 2 people that he loved. Two of the great love of his life. One came back. This man took electricide, threw it at Bullseye, and got him in the shoulder. Bullseye was like, you almost nailed me. You almost nailed me in the heart. And he's like, I was aiming for the heart. I missed. He was ready to kill this man. But always that white Catholic guilt. I'm sorry, that Irish white Catholic guilt always kept.
Same difference.
I want to break this man's neck, but I won't do it because that Catholic guilt. God damn, Catholic guilt, man. No, nobody does the Irish Catholic guilt like my man Matthew Murdock. I'm sorry that I'm going on a tangent, but
no, this is great.
With this man. So when the Netflix show came out, it was 13 years. 13 years of ridicule. 13 years of ridicule I had to suffer from Frank out. He's a B-list hero. And Ben Affleck Reindeer Games was there. And then Charlie Cox came on the scene and shut everybody the fuck up. Why was it so great? Because it was gritty. Why was it so great? Because the fight choreography could not be fucking touched. Why was it so great? Because in those fight scenes, motherfuckers weren't just getting one KO with one hit. Motherfuckers got back up like it's like an actual fight. Henchman number 2 is fighting for 3 minutes. What the fuck is this? You ain't never seen nothing like that because we kept it real over here. And Ben Urich was black. Candace Curtis Hall. Oh my God, that's why Oh, so mad he died. He should have been the one that was connecting all of them. I fight. It should have been him. He should not have died in season 1. And my heart hurts so much. But it's still the best freaking series. Listen. Y'all don't hear me. Y'all don't hear me. Chip Zdarsky. Chip Zdarsky is writing it. I think he's writing and drawing. No, I think he's just writing. I'm forgetting the artist's name. He's writing Daredevil now. It's just kind of propaganda, but the shit bangs. And the hand-to-hand is amazing. Back when I think it wasn't Warren Ellis, I think Mark Waid and Chris Samney, they were writing it. They were the team on Daredevil, and they had this man get his ass beat by this ninja Ikari, and Ikari was seeing him on the hand-to-hand. I ain't never seen nobody step to Daredevil like this. And there was a scene where Daredevil was like, I have to hide to beat this man, and he was about to reach for a bat to get this guy, and you were in a shop where it was dark, and he reaches over to get a bat, and Ikari's like, oh, you don't go for the bat, go for the red one, and he's like, oh, what the fuck, this guy he's like me, but and he can see as well, what the fuck, and then that guy knocks him across the goddamn head, even when he's getting his ass beat like Vegeta, he makes it look good. No, you don't understand, man. Nobody fights like this man. The Muay Thai ropes. No other hero is doing that. Plus, his power, like it gives him like hearing and super hearing and things like that. But like if he focuses too hard, starts bleeding from the nose, and also like his touch is sensitive as well. Because like, all right, you're punching things. Right. Also, at some point, that has to hurt you as well because you're so sensitive to touch. Another fun fact: the chemical waste that gave him his powers is also the same chemical waste that gave him the
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, the author of the Turtles made that connection.
I hate and love that connection all at once.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it every time I think about it, but it's cool. Great. I love a retcon.
He is. No one gets it in hand to hand. No one is an MMA monster like this man.
That's true.
In post, you can cut what I said all before this.
No, what I do love, I started reading, I always like to advertise for the Marvel Unlimited app because I really want them to sponsor this podcast, but the Marvel Unlimited app has all the original Daredevil comics, so I was rereading the first one, and what I like about Matt Murdock's introduction is that he very specifically had good training before his incident.
Yep.
So it's not like, your Peter Parkers or your Steve Rogerses who are not really great to begin with. They get trained afterward. Matt Murdock was probably pretty lethal in his own right. And so then to add on top of all of that muscle and the training that, or not the training that his father gave him, but the history and the body type that he gave him of like a strong boxer, was a great foundation for him as a hero. Because he could have been, there's certain things that he said in that comic book that I was like, you could be a villain. Like kids were making fun of him. They were like, "Ooh, you a bitch!" Like basically, like. And
Daredevil, my dad won't let me. What the fuck?
Yeah, like they were like, they think I'm a sissy. I'll show them. That could have gone left really quick. So the fact that he was still like the heart of gold that he has, that shows
Catholic
itself.
guilt.
That Catholic guilt, but that shows itself in both his lawyering practice and in his fighting as Daredevil is just like it's a great foundation for any hero. One of the stronger ones that I have seen from like the pre-1975, pre-1980 origined comics. So I do have to give my hats off to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and whoever else was involved in the creation of him. Is a good introduction.
And it's such a smart origin story. Like it's not one that's had to be retconned like at all. Like you don't have to redo it. You don't have to remake the wheel with it. This is just a guy that kicks ass and uses like all of his extra senses to do it. And I think also did and maybe you'll have to tell me about this, Omar. Did Daredevil introduce Kingpin, or was he a villain somewhere else and just became Kingpin's arch nemesis later on, because he's such a big villain that I know he overshadows like a lot of people. I think of him primarily as Daredevil's and Spider-Man's villains, even though he's a villain to a lot of different people.
He's a Spider-Man villain first.
He's a Spider-Man villain first. Okay.
Yes.
It's just so weird to me that I just think of I connect him more with Daredevil than probably any of them. Maybe Spider-Man second.
I agree.
But the fact that they work so well together as a you know, a yin and yang kind of thing. You know, it's hard to talk about Daredevil without talking about Kingpin and Vincent D'Onofrio.
Oh
my God. That man's performance. You kind of felt bad for him, but then you didn't, and then he's smashing guys' heads and in car doors and just it's such a layered performance that I was just like, you know, rest in peace to Michael Clark Duncan, but he couldn't hold a candle to what Vincent D'Onofrio did with this character, man. It was crazy.
It was to be fair, the character Kingpin in the movie was so much more of a black and white comic book villain.
Right.
And we didn't really get to see much of Kingpin and his backstory and everything. He was just the bad guy. It's like when you're playing a video game and you've got the super bad guy at the end after you played all the
minor bosses. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, he's the boss.
Yeah, they relied on his musculature for sure. I mean, he's just a big dude, and so they played more into that as far as and not so. But I love that they played a lot more into his intelligence. I mean, you don't get to rule the underworld or the world like that without being, you know, really, really smart about how you go about it and making yourself almost invisible, you know, to the rest of the world, to everybody else doesn't even know you're the villain. Like, you're pulling so many strings and you're the heads of so many organizations that nobody even knows that you're the guy. That's
why Hawkeye was his intro in Hawkeye was so good. Like, that was one of my favorite parts. Like, I knew it was coming. I felt it. I was like, it's coming. Vincent D'Onofrio is going to appear on my screen any moment. But it was
New York.
But like, also there were certain things that they had said throughout the series that I was like, I think it's Kingpin. It's Kingpin. It has to be Kingpin.
If it hadn't been Kingpin, I would have been disappointed. Like, they planted so many seeds that if it had been anybody else, I would have just like tossed everything. I would have been so
flip the table.
Prostitution.
But what I think it was such a smart introduction, given everything that has happened. They've laid the groundwork really well in the MCU about, like, people have been missing for 5 years. The world is chaos. Falcon and Winter Soldier happened already, and all that good stuff. So there are power vacuums. So we have our power broker, which I still don't know how I feel about Sharon Carter being
not at all
power broker.
I hate it.
But whatever. I'll move on from it because that's not what we're talking about right now. And but we have our power broker, and then for New York City, Kingpin is the power broker. Like, he is the end all be all of anything that is happening. So that tie-in was a really neat and well executed tie-in, and I really love that. And what I love about Vincent D'Onofrio's portrayal as well is that, you know, Michael Clark Duncan, like, he's known for being like a muscular dude. So the thing about Kingpin is that they always call him like Fat Man or something like that. And so he looks a certain kind of way, but that's all muscle. And so what I got from Hawkeye, and obviously from the original series too, but what I got from Hawkeye, especially, they hit that man with a car. he got him. Like, that's the only kind of person that I can imagine going toe to toe with Daredevil. Someone who is so strong that, like, anything that despite how good Daredevil is at hand to hand, he could grab his entire face and crush it in his hand if he so chose to do.
He almost killed him one time. Daredevil, he almost killed him because he when he systematically took his life apart, he found out who he was, and he was like, all right, well, watch me get rid of your practice. Like, I'm going to get rid of your girl. I took everything away from you. Made him have a nervous breakdown where Daredevil was like, all right, I'm showing up at your door. What's up? It's civilian clothes. It's civilian clothes. Fuck is great. And then he got his ass beat, and then he's like, all right, I gotta not kill him because like the point to make him suffer. But then should have killed him because then Daredevil came back and got everything back from him.
It's always the mistake, isn't it? Always the mistake. I'm gonna leave you alive to suffer. Nah, leave me alive.
You leave me alive to exactly. You're gonna leave me alive.
Leave me alive to get revenge.
That's also the same problem with Daredevil because I mean I do not mind a hero that killed because I figure like if you go into this hero game, just cause and effect. Batman, you came in the game because you came into the game this way. The Joker comes. This is because of you. All the people this man has killed is on you. This man killed your Rob, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you keep believing in the law, which is the same thing for Daredevil because Bullseye has killed so many people to a point where he had a breakdown. He thought all he saw was Daredevil, and he just started mass shooting people. And Daredevil beats him at one point, and he's like, "I should just." And the train was coming. He's like, "I should just leave him here. I could just walk away. I just be walking away." And you see him pick him up and leave. And the police officer's like, "Why didn't you kill him?" And then when Justin was like, "Why didn't you kill him?" And he was like, everything he does from this point on, it's on you. And there's a scene where I think it's after Bullseye killed Elektra, where they're fighting on this high wire, and Daredevil like hangs out like trapeze style with his legs, and he's holding on to Bullseye, and then Bullseye's gonna go stab with the side, and he's like, and he lets go. Bullseye falls, like kind of shatters his spine and everything, and then there's that famous scene. Daredevil's in a hospital room with him, and he's telling him this story. And meanwhile, he's telling him the story as he's loading a revolver. And like from our point of view, you like get a close up of Bullseye's eyes. He's like, "Oh shit!" And Daredevil's pointing the gun to him. Click. Points the gun to himself. Click. And he's put the fear of God in Bullseye at this point. And then he's telling him like, "Yo, we keep going around doing this. Like, it'd be so easy that I could just kill you. It would be over." And then he puts a gun to his head. Click, and he's like, "But the thing is, every time it comes to you, my gun is always empty, and there were no bullets in it." Like that psychological trauma he was given him. Like also, at that point, like you're not gonna walk again. But then obviously later on, he gets like adamantium bonded to his bones so he can walk.
Of course.
He incapacitated that man only because he was gonna try to stab him. And it's like I had no choice. That was like maybe a 3-story fall that he survived too. Like, but again, you let this dude live. I think Bullseye's a specific case. Like you let this man live, and like this is a mass killer. He kills on a whim. You know what I mean? This is a legit like murderer, and you know what I mean? Like, and you let him, you let this man live just so he continues killing and killing and killing and killing throughout all these years. Like there is a line at some point. Like if you're in this game, this comes with it. You know what I mean? Like you created this mess. Kind of on you to solve. That's my idea, at least. Right. Like, I'm not saying kill everyone, but like, look, like, I think we could all agree, guys, like,
this good? You good? We good? Yeah.
Like, he's getting out of jail somehow. He's like, and loopholes and stuff like that. Like, all right, only wait 6 feet. You can't. It's hard. It's real hard to Houdini out of 6 feet of dirt. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point that you bring up. Usually the argument within comic books for superheroes is like, well, if we kill them, then we become them. We don't want to become that which we hate or that which we are fighting against or yada, yada, yada. But I'm pretty sure Steve Rogers killed some Nazis.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's war. Exactly. Anything that has to do, or most of what has to do with superheroes, because they're fighting on a macro scale. This is not just like petty, like squabbles or like someone putting on a ski mask and trying to help out or do whatever. This is like legitimately war. It is war for the heart of New York City or Hell's Kitchen in this case. It is war for Earth. It is war for the United States. If you're fighting a different, whatever the case may be, it is
multiverse. I mean, it could be
different multiverses. All these kangs are about to come through. I'm just saying, all these kangs are about to come through in the multiverse and fuck shit up. And are you not gonna kill him? Listen, people who keep saying, Sylvie, why did you do that? They keep giving her the what am I gonna call her? Like the Star-Lord treatment. Like, Star-Lord, you fucked everything up. And I'm like, listen, Sylvie did what Sylvie had to do, and she's the only person who had the balls to even like be like, you know what? It's not worth it. Kill. She killed him. So I have to like give kudos to some at some level, because some of these heroes do not do what is necessary. Wonder Woman has definitely killed many people.
Oh yeah, and she said, "I'm a warrior." Like y'all, there's a reason I got a rogues gallery that's not as long as y'all's. When they step to me, I put them down for good. I'm not y'all call me a hero. I was trained as a warrior from a child. Like I can even step to Superman. Like this ain't a game. This ain't like you out here killing folks. This ain't a game, man. Like no, there's a petty crime step. Like oh, you're stealing a jewel. Like okay, cool. You are killing people, and now you're coming at me. Nah,
you think
like,
right?
Yeah.
Have y'all seen Multiverse of Madness?
Yes, I saw.
Yeah,
yesterday.
I think we all have. Oh, great, we all have. Look at us.
Because
I have not watched Hawkeye.
As you said, because then Wanda says that line to Doctor Strange. I all agreed. You did this. You held people captive in Westview. You did that. You were aware that you did that because you walked out of it, then walked right back in, like you're getting the Sunday paper. And then she tells Strange, like, oh, I do it, I get vilified. But when you do it, when you do this, time was whatever, you get praised as a hero.
You're a hero.
You're a hero.
Like we were at war, man. Did you not see Thanos? Like when that man choked me by my own cave? Did you? When he threw a planet at us, like we were at war. You mad over some children that don't exist in this world, dog? Are we,
exactly.
Just touching on that real quick, like I like. Because Scarlet Witch, she has more agency in the MCU than she did in comic books. Because when she went wild in the comics, it was House of M, which was done for her dad, or the mental breakdown that happened to some of the Avengers. Because of a woman, emotional, like blah. Ugh. This one, at least in MCU, is like, this is something I wanted and was taken away or whatever. The illusion got broken, even though it should not have been Monica Rambeau saying like, they'll never know what you gave up. What did you give up? Because this motherfuckers were real. However, all right, if you're going down this route. I don't think there should be. There will be a redemption for her. I prefer it when there is no out. Like I did this shit. I'm bad. This is what I wanted. Like give me that selfishness that turns you bad, and let's keep that same energy. Because the same thing happened with Hal Jordan in DC Comics until they retconned it. They retconned it 2003. He came back in 2004. So maybe like 11 or some odd years later, where it was retconned that he didn't go crazy because Hal Jordan in 1993, his city gets bombed by Mongols, and then he basically brings the city back to life using his ring, which is against the rules for the Green Lantern Corps. And they called him in. They're like, you got to come in now. And he's the greatest Green Lantern of all time. He kills motherfuckers on the way to take the power for himself, so he can rebuild so he can break that rule and rebuild the city. He gets stopped, yada yada yada. He gets vilified. Years later, in 2006. It's like, it wasn't his fault. He was infected by this parallax, which is this parallax that comes. That was this entity of fear that infected him. So it's not really his fault. They're like, an excuse. I'm not a fan of the excuse. Like, if he stand on the word. You made him do that. Let's stand on it. Stand on it. So I want the same for Wanda. Like, when we know, like, final war, she's gonna come. Like, she's not dead. We collapse it. Anytime someone collapses on themselves, they're not dead.
You saw the red flash.
So I'm like,
she's especially not dead because whatever happened, maybe I'm looking into this part of it too much, but when she collapsed the thing, the next scene was all the dark holds disappearing. So she had to still be alive in that context. So
like, how would you have done that? I agree.
Yeah, she's not dead. It was the clearest non-death that I've ever seen. So I agree. I want a character. The thing that makes superhero stories so interesting and engaging to me is that most of these characters stand very strong by a certain conviction. So to the point that when they do weird things, like when Batman was using a gun and fucking Batman versus Superman, it was like, excuse me, do you even know what character you're writing? It doesn't, like, that made no sense. So when certain things like that happen, it just makes it like a weird glitch in your brain. It's a glitch in the matrix. Or the
Batman is so very much known for hating guns, not using them. It is a plot point in many freaking episodes and comic. It's just like,
to the point that because my thing about anything, when you write something, you have to know the stereotypes, you have to know the opposite of those stereotypes, so you can either play into them or play directly against them. So if you choose to have a Batman have guns, there has to be a very specific reason that is happening. In the context where Batman is Thomas Wayne, it's very different than when it's Bruce Wayne. It is like it's just different. When Joker is Martha Wayne, it's different. There's a different context. She's more on that Wanda track of being like, my son is dead, and so like that whole thing. But yeah, so getting back into the Daredevil of it all, we've talked a bit about Kingpin, and Bullseye. Are there other members of his Rogues Gallery that we should talk about right now?
I mean, Rogues Gallery and Friend Gallery, because we can get into
Foggy,
Punisher, because Punisher and I mean, I've never really seen them hang out with Moon Knight that much, but like their styles actually they're not that similar, because as Taskmaster put it, he was like, oh god, I hate, because Taskmaster can copy anybody's fighting style, and he was like, I hate Moon Knight. He's like, his fighting style is useless because he's not gonna avoid a punch. He'll take the punch just to get to you. And like Moon Knight's like, yeah, that's me. Whereas Matt Murdock, finesse, just grace. This man has stepped again. You've never seen grace like this. Even Iron Fist, like there's an '80s comic, Luke Cage and Iron Fist are stepping to him. He avoids Luke Cage, and then Iron Fist is like coming out and he's like, oh man, he's like ducking over and he's throwing a punch. And Matt Murdock is like, he literally ducks, rolls, springs up, gets into a light pole, and Iron Fist is like, oh, he's like, oh wow, what do you call it? Like, oh, that's a nice maneuver. What do you call that? Ducking? And he's just that nasty with it, where I legit stepped to anybody. And one person that he stepped to a lot of times, like they'll never kill each other, and even though he's trying to bring him in, is the Punisher. Someone that, as you were saying before, like he plays again, he's the far opposite spectrum of what Daredevil stands for. And even we saw it in that the Netflix series, where they had that famous scene where he's chained up and he has a gun to him, and Punisher tells him like, I'm gonna kill this man. Only way to stop me is if you shoot me. There's no other way option. And that was taken straight from the '80s comic, where it's like where they're arguing their different views. He's like, oh, you just put him in the morgue. You're goddamn right I do. Like he just like I make sure they stay down. You put them in jail, they get out. Like the law is flawed. You won't believe in it so much. The law is flawed there. So like it's been a really, like, I really love seeing them. My wife and I are rewatching it. She's never seen Daredevil.
Oh, okay.
So we're into that part of the season now. So she's watching the Punisher and whatnot. So like it's really like John Bernthal does such a great job. And,
so good.
It's such a good play on like the killer, because and Daredevil even says at one point, he's like, all right, look, my way's not working. And maybe it has to be this once your way, and then Punisher tells him, no, there is no once, man. You do this, there's no coming back. Right. There's no coming back. However, that's not always true, because Barry Allen, he killed Professor Zoom when Zoom was coming to kill his wife. And he had him. It's really quick. Zoom was charging at his wife to run through her at super speed, and all Barry did was he just stopped, and then he basically snapped dude's neck. He went to trial for it and shit like that. But he had to kill and go bloodthirsty at that. Like this was the only thing I could do. Daredevil went through a similar situation in Chip Zdarsky's run. He killed a guy by accident. He was stopping a robbery, and he was back from injury, and he came back a little too soon, and he defended himself, and a dude died because of it. And so he went into jail and everything. He stood on trial as Daredevil for the crime. It was an interesting take and shit. But now he's out. Blah, blah, blah. But it was, still, it was propaganda. But it was interesting, because like this does happen. And Spider-Man told him like, yo, I see you on the streets again. You're done. You're gonna ruin it for the rest of us. And then when Daredevil suited up, and then Spider-Man came back, like, what did I say? He's like, man, let's not act like this. Okay, the dude died. My bad, but you put people in the hospital. I'm the only one that put people in the hospital. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not better than me, Peter. You know what I mean? Like, don't come in here all holier than thou. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Gwen Stacy, he didn't say this, but like, yo, like, like Goblin threw her off, the bridge. I'm sorry, I'm talking
Right.
too much. See, I will shut up after
This is great.
Oh,
I love it.
Like Tony and Steve Rogers and Tony Stark were talking about this during the whole Civil War thing, where it was like, oh, heroes should be registered, they shouldn't. And he was like, yeah, I mean, he's like, Tony was like, maybe if Spider-Man had proper training, Gwen Stacy would still be alive. And then Captain America's like, he's not the one that threw her off the bridge. You know what I'm saying? Because she gets thrown off the bridge. Spider-Man shoots a web line at her, pulls her up, but that is what breaks her neck. And
Right.
he corrected years later when he makes a web for MJ when similar thing happens like that. Like, he technically, you killed someone, you know what I mean? Like, you,
Right.
I mean, it's not really his fault, you know what I mean? But like,
Right.
again,
It's manslaughter.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So like again, like that killing isn't always like, oh, you crossed this line. You know, sometimes again, sometimes it is self-defense, which is why I hate when Batman's like, oh, there's always another way. Motherfucker, maybe for you, because like I don't know if I can throw a batarang and hit the gun in the hole from like 10 feet away, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that shit was coming at me, you know what I mean? So again, which is why I like Punisher and Daredevil. They're so good with each other because they're opposite end. And Daredevil once told him, in that Chip Zdarsky run, he's like, I thought you came over like me. I saw you kill someone, you get sloppy. It's like, I thought you finally were gonna step it up, but you're a waste. Like, and then Daredevil, he takes down Punisher, and he's like, you don't understand. If I start killing, he took Punisher's guns and he took him apart, like 6 shots, shoulder, leg, he grazed them in the face, like just took him down. He's like, you don't understand. You're working on a small scale. If I start using these, I'm a god with these. Like, I'm a true devil with these in my hands. Like this, like we never seen a fire go before like that. I'm like, this man is so disgusting. Like, yeah. Like it was like show, like, oh, like let's say I did do it your way, I'm operating on a whole new level that you couldn't imagine with my abilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, also, John Bernthal is another one who is unrecastable. Like, if you have a Punisher in the MCU, he's established himself. I don't want to see anybody other than John Bernthal playing Punisher in the MCU. It's like, yeah, I didn't want exactly. No, like I didn't want to see anybody but D'Onofrio playing Kingpin. I didn't want to see anybody but Charlie Cox playing Daredevil. I don't want to see anybody but Bernthal playing the Punisher. Period. The man killed it in that role. Just like the turmoil, the second season was badass. Also, I mean, it's just, I don't want to see anybody else. He's amazing.
I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I thought about during this last conversation, which is it's interesting to me. Most of the superheroes that we know, they have their alter egos who don't really have anything to do with helping the downtrodden in their day-to-day life. Like they Diana, I mean, she works at like a museum,
right? Like a fancy museum.
And then like Clark works at, you could say to some extent maybe, but he's not a great one. he's there.
His whole thing was like, oh, I work here so that I can hear of these things.
So he can hear things.
Yeah, but like Lois probably took down more gangs and shit, and they're important than him. But he's just like,
which they've been very clear about that in Superman and Lois. It was like Lois is the one going after the big fish in the sea and writing all this stuff down and committing pen to paper and being a target in that way. Clark Kent is rarely a target for anybody. So it's interesting to me because I would say Matt Murdock's probably in the top 5, at least without me even thinking about it, probably maybe even the top 3 of characters who are specifically fighting the fight in their alter ego selves, as well as in the nighttime fighting crime, which you would think, because again, Bruce Wayne very specifically tries to distance himself from what Batman does. Wayne Enterprises will still try to do the right thing from that perspective. Sometimes as a CEO, he'll try to help the environment or do whatever. But all things considered, Bruce Wayne is a billionaire playboy philanthropist, and he's not really like on the streets of Gotham being like, hey, my name's Bruce Wayne. Do you need like a meal, or do you need to find some place to go for the evening? He's not doing all that. Matt Murdock is that dude. Like, he will, to his detriment, attempt to help his fellow Hell's Kitchen comrades, and I think I think I like that. I think that's what I like especially about him. We were talking about the common man part of it. That's what makes him so engaging, is because he doesn't care very much for himself. He will do anything to help the people of New York and the greater Hell's Kitchen area. So that's a great part of his Irish Catholicness coming to the fore.
And you think about like how many characters in the MCU don't even have jobs. Like, what are they doing?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Captain
America?
Falcon and Winter Soldier touched on that.
Yeah.
You know, when
Right, when
Falcon
he's
didn't have any money because Tony Stark wasn't loaning it to him anymore. So it's like
superheroing doesn't pay the bills.
What are you guys even doing with most of your day when you're not, when there's no looming threat on the horizon? That's what I love about Matt Murdock, is that he is finding ways, you know, to give back, and he's finding ways to, you know, to fight corporations and taking on the cases of little people, and, you know, operating his law firm to make a difference on both sides of it. Whereas all these other people, I don't know what you're doing on your free time, training, I guess, to get stronger. But how are you helping anybody when you're not suited up? You know?
I mean, Peter's in school, so he gets a pass.
Nah.
Sometimes, but no, at some point he becomes an adult.
Nah,
At some point,
He takes pictures. He takes pictures, I guess, for the Daily
He
Planet.
took pictures. He was a school teacher, and then
he himself.
He was taking selfies of himself.
Let's be real. He's taking pictures of himself fighting crime and getting paid for it. That's not helping anybody but him. So
he did become a teacher, and then he got his own corporation when Dr. Octavius took over his body, and then that was done. Blah blah blah. I don't know what his job is now since that has happened. I like school teacher era Peter Parker. That was cool. I think they should.
It does fit.
that makes sense to me. Like, he's for all intents and purposes, he's good with kids, and he's obviously super, super smart. So, like,
yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, and he struggled so much as a teen that makes sense to me that he would go back to the scene of the crime, as it were, and just kind of try to make it easier for kids to exist and just be kids, because he never really got to do that after a certain point.
That's actually, I think Spider-Man's probably Daredevil's. That's probably his best friend in a hero. Yeah, that is sure. Because I mean, New York.
Don't tell Deadpool.
I mean, all he has to do is swing across the bridge. He's there.
Right there. Yeah. I love the interaction too.
And we haven't. Before we go, I want to talk about like the main part of Daredevil being that like he's a blind superhero.
Oh yeah,
I was reading that Stan Lee was really concerned that the blind community would be like not into it because the kind of stereotype of like, well, you can't see, so all your other senses are made like tenfold by whatever. And so I appreciate the fact that he even thought about it in any capacity, because God knows we can go through the Rolodex of superhero comic books in which they definitely weren't thinking about certain things, and it's a lot of offensive. But but I really like that forethought went into it in some way, shape, or form, because I think it has made Matt Murdock a much more interesting disabled character than a lot of the other disabled characters that exist in the comic book world. A friend of mine always says, to his chagrin, what he doesn't like about superheroes and disabled villains or superheroes is that it's like usually someone who, let's say Kurt Connors or Razor Fist, like they're a villain because they're either going to try to make the world a better place and heal themselves. They're trying to heal themselves. And that was Morbius, exactly. They're trying to heal themselves and become a villain, and you're either a saint or you're a sinner when it comes to being disabled within the world of comics. And I think Matt Murdock is, I mean, it's that Catholic thing on top of the fighter. There's like the polar opposite things that he could be. And I think that they've done a really good job of making him well-rounded and nuanced because of that.
I wonder if he's trying to, as being a lawyer and working with the clients that he does, I wonder if part of it is he's trying to atone for his sins of injuring other human beings, physically, emotionally, whatever.
For one of it was his, a big part of it was his father's dying. Like, I guess in a sense, his father's dying was because of, you can't use, because it was, I guess it was in Frank Miller's run too, because when he does get into a fight, he's like, yo, Dad, I fought and I hit him up, it was great. So smacks the shit out of him out of anger, because like, this is, I don't want you, I want better than this, which is what gets him into the law. He's like, my dad hit me, and he goes, Dad was wrong. So if Dad, because he runs away, and he's like, I go home later that night, and he's like, if Dad hit me, and that was wrong, then anybody can break the law. And so the law is what keeps everything in place. And he's like, all right, this is the night that I dedicate myself to the law then. But that's like what really solidified it. And a thing I love from that issue of Daredevil was when he comes back home after college, after the whole Elektra thing, and like going out at night with the do-rag around his face and shit like that. There's a little girl he's helping out, and he's training her at the gym. And then he tells a story about like, when I was a kid, the gym's just like I left it. And I bet even there's a time where I was on the block and he had like a little mask and a skateboard, and he stole this officer's baton. They used to like walk the beat there. And he's like, I stole Mickey's baton, and I stashed it away in a locker here. And like I was just, running the streets, whatever. He's like, I wonder if that's still there. But he's like, then I forget about it because like I put away childish things. When that girl gets kidnapped and then Matt Murdock hears about it, my man runs to the gym, he puts on the do-rag, puts on the Adidas windbreakers, he kicks open the locker, Billy Club right there, grabs that shit and goes and rescues her. So it's another like that deal like growing up, like, I did like you were saying before, like, these people I hurt and whatnot, like maybe that wasn't the right way. I left that behind me, and sticks training and shit, I left that all behind me. Nah, this girl's in trouble. We fuck. Nah, it's go time. Like, I'm back, baby. Right. This guy's so multifaceted. I just love everything about him, man. He is. I love him, and I love Scott Summers. These are my two. You know what I mean? These are the only two white men I'd be kicking for like that. That's what I mean. Don't go around this thing I kick for every white guy. Like Scott Summers, Matt Murdock, Wonder Woman. Those are my three.
On that note, let's wrap up this conversation. I had a great time talking with y'all. I can't wait to see Daredevil. I think we should see him in Echo, which should be coming out next year, 2023. So. That sounds right to me.
Sounds right.
So that's exciting. Can't wait to see more of that.
Thanks for having me here. My name is Omar Holmon. You can find me at Omar Holmon. Real name, no gimmicks, across any social media platform. Google me, man. Just Google me. I'm there. I pop up. I do weird things. You'll see it. I'm right.
Corinne Scott. I am she, her pronouns. Cool words. You can find me on the Instawebs at I am Corinne Scott. 1 R, 2 N's, and an E. Yeah. I gotta get better at these intros and outros. Gotta step up my game.
Not like we don't have 30 episodes.
And I am Michael Andreas. You can find me on Instagram at Michael_Andreas. You can also catch me touring the country with Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations, the musical. So yeah, this was good today.
And as always, I'm Zuri. I use she, her pronouns, and you can follow me on IG at Zuri with a fringe on top. Please follow the podcast on IG at Super Black Podcast, or you can follow us on Twitter at Super Podcast. Let us know your thoughts on Matt Murdock, the Tumblr from Down Under and Hell's Kitchen, and let us know what we forgot or what we didn't talk about. We didn't get a chance to talk about any of his friends, such as Foggy and Karen Page and all that good stuff. Normal people that do not kill people for a living. So let us know your thoughts along those lines. And don't forget, should you need heroes, we've got your back. We fear no topic, we attack. If conversation is what you lack, you'll find it here with Super Black. Bye.